Rachel Fiset and Stuart Kaplan once again. Rachel, I had a question for you, and if this gets interesting, we're going to let you hear at home. But Rachel, first of all, I wondered why guns are being admitted into the courtroom, shown to the jury, that were not used in the murders. These are separate guns. The ballistics haven't proven them out. Why would they be bringing them in and showing the jury any weapons that were found on the property that aren't, in fact, connected?
They are showing the jury that he is a gun owner and that he is familiar with guns. And I think that's why the judge is letting that in. That's what's going on. They're showing that it's common practice to have guns here and the family's familiarity. And I think that would go to modus operandi or just general keepings around the ranch where the murders occurred. So that I think that would have been a close call as to whether to let that in, but I just believe that is simply showing familiarity and various different types. Here, 2 types of guns were used. So the defendant would have been familiar with various kinds of guns as a gun owner himself.
And to your point, Rachel, and Stuart, jump in on this, 2 types of guns used. The defense has floated the theory in the last 24 hours during testimony on Monday that there may have been 2 shooters. What do you make of that strategy?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and that the defense would bring that up. That's generally why 2 types of guns would be used. Frankly, if this was Alec Murdaugh, if he is guilty, that's why he probably did use 2 types of guns, was so that he could argue later that it was 2 people. And I think either he's been caught in his own game, or two shooters is a plausible defense, because you don't normally see somebody put down one gun and use a totally other type of gun.
And Stuart, that's where the timeline's going to come into play, pinging the phones in certain locations, the trajectory of some of the bullets.
That is exactly correct. And so we, in our minds, are thinking that these killings were almost simultaneously carried out. It may turn out, with respect to the phone information, that there is maybe several minutes between one person being shot and killed and then the other person being targeted and killed. I also just, again, and Marni, forgive me, because I always tell people, please don't leave your common sense, at home. Look, how many people, if there are 2 shooters, how many shooters, if they are hell-bent on coming in and paying retribution to Murdaugh's son, the fact that they would come without guns, or if they came with, coincidentally, a same type of weapon that we now know that Alex Murdaugh had, even though it's lost and we can't figure out where it is because his son somehow left it on the side of the road or in some shooting gallery, which in and of itself is ridiculous. But let's assume the shooter or the shooters came with an AR-15 or whatever type of rifle that is. I mean, what's the chances that one person who has that type of high-powered capacity rifle would not have been able to take both people out using one gun? This idea that 2 people come, one without a gun, and they just happen to find a gun laying around. The other thing is, I think as a responsible gun owner, generally speaking, guns are kept locked in a locked location, locked safe, or in a locked room. This idea that, they were just laying around, again, common sense, and I think also probably some of the jurors, they're going to realize guns are just not left out unattended, unsecured. It's irresponsible as a gun owner, and I think it belies and goes to prosecution's theory that this guy, this defendant, is the sole responsible person for carrying out these double homicides.
Real quickly, Rachel, do you think the prosecution did not lean in enough to the fact that the day after the murders were committed, there was a release from SLED saying the public is not in danger? They didn't really elaborate in court, at least they haven't so far, as to why they didn't feel like there was a greater threat one day after these murders, yet it took 13 months before they arrested Alec on the charges that he now faces.
The prosecution should be making that in closing argument. That should be a piece of evidence that they use there. They may have not had great testimony from SLED when they actually talk to the witnesses as to why they said there's no danger going forward. They may have said because we think these were targeted, not that we think we had apprehended the suspect. So if something's targeted, maybe there's not a greater threat to the public at large, but they also don't want the jury to hear that reasoning because that's not helpful to the case against Murdaugh, and the defense could use it that way. So it's hard to say why they didn't lean in on it, but it might simply have not been helpful with the witness they would use.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.